Hey, let me show you probably the coolest feature that Domo has, and then I'll show you how to get it working in your own portal. So in this example right here, you can see I have all this banner, all this white labeling with this Tesla logo. This is all supplied by my server. Underneath it, this is all Domo's platform embed. You've probably used private embed, which is when you just use a client ID, client secret, and you pull a dashboard or an App Studio app. This is embedding the entire Domo instance. It's embedding one of the child instances that you can set up, and you can set them up for just so dang cheap that this is now an option where you can either sell it or give it away to your current clients for much cheaper than they could realistically get their own Domo environment. And so in this case, you can see here's Tesla. I've got some other environments that are spun up. These are all separate child instances with their own containerized information. And you can have from your parent Domo instance publishing down content so then you can filter it based on the company and all the parameters that you normally need. And then when they log in, they only see what you want them to see, and you only create them as users that you want them to be. Okay, so how do we do this? Now, it's really cool and all, but we do have to figure out how the setup works. You can see here, this is one of the instances. This is the one that's hosting the Starbucks and the Tesla. And you can see that right here. Here's Tesla, here's Starbucks, here's AWS. You can see there's a main, there's the parent instance, and then there are all these child instances. And you can see that it, here's the partner, and then it's dash test one, dash test two, dash test three. I've made a lot of different testing ones. So how do we get all this set up? All right, I've got an environment that is set up specifically so then we can do this from the beginning. And we're going to make a workspace for SpaceX to render. And that's why I have the logos pulled up. So let's go over to this workspace. It's completely blank. We're going to go to settings. We're going to go to global settings. And the first thing we need to do is go in here and add in a JWT platform embed. Private embed, like I was talking, view only. This is editing. This is the ability to pull in your own data, run workflows, everything that a normal Domo instance can do. So it's going to say we need a JWT secret, an embed URL, and then a key attribute. So by default, we put in key attribute as the value. You will need to set it. So maybe it's going to be like a company ID. So you'll have a data set, and maybe all your data sets should filter down on the company ID before it publishes to a child. Then we're going to change that, but I'll show you how to get all this information. We're going to go over to my Domo instance, and I'm already on the page we want to be on, but all you're going to do is click admin. You're going to go to Domo everywhere, and you'll see all of these instances. So first thing I'm going to do, and here's the thing, I've made a lot of these test ones. I'm going to go with test 8. You're going to want to put in the instance name, which right here is going to create what URL it's going to go to. And then the service account email, this is like the first user. This is who can log in and actually access the application. But if you're an admin, you'll be able to get in through the instance manager as well. And then for the attribute, I'm going to stick with how I've been doing all the other ones. So I'll just do demo 0040 and an 8. And then I'm going to click save, and I'm going to wait for that to create. And then you can see it says close the window. So I'm going to close that because I'm going to go, and you can see it already loaded, but I'm going to go to routing, and I'm going to show you what we need to do. So we're going to click on JWT secret. Now, keep in mind, you can see here, this is a pretty important thing. Clicking the button a second time will reset the secret. Now, I'm already loading 3 different instances in that one get test instance. And so it says, if I click this button and I try to use this JWT secret somewhere else and it's different, it's going to break everything. But I'm showing you how to demo it. So let's go ahead and break it. So I'm going to click generate secret. I'm going to say copy it. I'm going to go back. I'm going to paste that in. Next thing we need to do is get the embed URL. And so the embed URL, it might make you think that this is the one that you want. The one that you actually want is this one right here. So let's click copy on that, come back and paste that in. So this is what we want in there. And then the next thing you can see key attribute. We're going to come back. I'm going to take a little pause and explain this embed URL. This is saying, where should Domo allow hosting a platform embed. And you can see I have this in here with a wildcard saying https:// anything at clearsquare.co. But at the same time, I could type in, and you can enter in as many as you'd like. This just says where we'll host. Analytics.clearsquare.co. So that would work as well, wherever you're going to host it in the end. And I'm just saying anything that is ClearSquare. So now I'm going to put all this stuff back so it's not all over the place. We've got that. We've got this. I'm going to just click copy here and download. We're going to need this later. So for now, we're just going to leave it inside of my downloads. Now, we're talking about the key attribute value. Now, so by default, it's going to say key attribute in here. Yours might actually say nothing. So if you were to go switch from routing to mapping and look at key attribute, there might be nothing in there. So you might need to click edit. And like I said, maybe your value is something like this, right? All of your data sets have a column called company ID. And when you publish content down, you're going to want it to filter on company ID, and then the key attribute will be that company's value. So keep that in mind. But if you do change this key attribute, you need to make sure you paste it here. So then both of them are synced up. So I'm going to just not change it because that's what I want. I'm going to go back to the instance management, and we saw that it loaded it right before I toggled the page anyway. But we're going to need this ClearSquare -co partner test, and we're going to need this demo 008. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this. We're going to go over to workspaces, and we're going to add our first JWT embedded workspace. I'm just going to call this one I'm going to keep it a capital, just so then you guys can tell the difference that this is not what's required. This is just the name. You can name it whatever you'd like. And so I'm going to click save. So a normal workspace, when it gets created, doesn't say full access. And you can see it's saying forms doesn't work in there because it just doesn't apply to an embedded environment. But if we click inside of it, we're going to see pages, groups, PDP, layouts, and styles. So what that means is that we can control all of these things from inside the ClearSquare portal for all of our child instances. But we have to set it up. And to do that, we're going to go to settings and authentication credentials. Every single child instance is going to need some details from the actual instance itself. And then it's going to need a client ID and client secret. So I'm going to click edit. I'm going to click the add credential, and then the subscriber instance URL. That's not the right one, but we can just go over here. Let's click into it. By clicking into it, it'll actually log us all the way into that application, which is phenomenal. But all we need is, well, need all of it. We're going to go back over, and then we know that this one is demo 0008, and then the client ID and client secret. So we'll come back to those at the very end when we get them. But there are some things we need to set up in the child instance. Because see, this is the child, here's the main. Keep them separate in your mind. So we're going to go to admin, and then from here, we're going to go to SAML SSO. In SAML, we're going to say, let's start a setup. We're going to do manual setup. It's actually the easiest. The identity, provider, endpoint URL, and then this download. Those are the ones that I said we were just going to need a little later on. So I'm going to recopy this, but this one right here, I've already downloaded. So that goes right on in there. This one from our downloads, we're going to grab that PEM, problem reading certificate. I think we just have to wait a second and it'll be good. Yep. Okay. And so for the identity ID, we're just going to do https:/, and this is the URL that the end user is going to be experiencing all this from. And so I know that it is just going to be this one, at least it's how I set mine up. Oh, yep, we want to be in this side, and it is just user. So this is where it's going to be hosted, where people can actually see it from. This is that one we just copied and pasted. This one and this one, well, actually all of these will typically just be all the same. So these two will always be the same. If you're trying to host one from a different URL, then yeah, you're going to want to have a different one here, and then you're going to need to add in any of the other ones that it's swapping between. But yeah, so from there, we can just actually say, save the configuration. And it's just like, oh, are you actually sure? Because anyone else who's trying to log in through this URL won't have access anymore. Yep, let's save it anyway. And now we're all good. So the only other thing that we need to do, we've hooked up everything that's needed on the child side, but we do still need that client ID and client secret. And so what we actually are going to do is go to developer.domo.com. I'm going to log out of whatever account is currently in there. Say go in, because you can only log into one developer.domo.com account at a time. And I just don't know what it is. So it's better just to log out and then log in with the one that we know that we want, which is this guy. All right, so it's logged us in. I'm going to click create a client. I'm just going to say clear square portal. And then I always put in parentheses the URL, just because when you log into developer.domo.com, sometimes it's hard to tell which instance you're in. And so I oftentimes just put it in there so I see which credentials it is. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the wrong spot. But I'm just going to say platform embed. And then for this one, technically we don't need Buzz because it's not a feature that's available inside of platform embed. But just for the day when it is, I just click it anyway. Now let's click create, and it will show us a client ID and client secret. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to head it back over here. Client ID, paste. We're almost there. And then client secret, paste. And now we can save that. Awesome. Okay. So now we've embedded everything that we need. The only thing I normally do is just say, hey, yeah, sync up the users. These being if the user is created inside of the instance and not created by coming over here and adding in a new user. Like in this case, I'm going to say, let's add in a new user. This new user is going to be the admin account, and I want them to be an admin. And so I'll submit that. Now, it does take a second for the auto import to calibrate and just make sure that it's pulling in the right user. So let's give it a pause, and I'll let you know when it has synced everything up. All right, looks like everything's synced up. The way I know is if I went over here to groups, you can see it's pulling different groups from that Domo instance. So if that's the case, all that means is I just am going to go to my user portal. It says I successfully logged in because I navigated from the admin, and I'm all logged in. So here is that same environment. You can see here is all of the clear square branding. Here is all of my Domo instance embedded, and I'm logged in as this admin account. Let's just put the final touches on this. Let's go ahead and grab both our logos. Save there, because we're just going to show start to finish, making this prepped for a client. And we want that color to match throughout. Let's make it white. Black is an easy one to quick style. All right, that is just about everything. In this case, let's just call it space X. We can do something like demo 0001. Just a little bit more branded, right? All right, let's go back. Let's refresh. Oh, there's one little thing I forgot. We just need to say, yeah, this individual instance can have its own branding. All right. Now, when I refresh it, because it's realizing it's changed to a different workspace under a different name. All right. And so here you go, an entirely branded environment that's doing platform embed. How awesome is Domo for just letting you use their entire software? This is really incredible, just because the price to normally get someone set up in Domo is expensive. It's a full service platform, but now you can offer your clients the same experience just based on your credit count and consumption. So you control the consumption by just saying what privileges they have. Really awesome feature.